Jules, I'm sure that going 2 goals down against Tottenham Hotspur was not part of the game plan.
It was not part of the game plan, Gab. You're right. What was part of the game plan, though, and we expected was the difference in match fitness between the two teams, which is very obvious considering Spurs had been on precedent for 6 weeks, had 6 friendly matches to get ready for the start of their season, when PSG have been training for 6 days after 3.5 weeks of holidays for the players. So that showed, I think, very quickly. Spurs had a very good game plan. They were sharp. They were aggressive. They defended really well. They were good on set pieces, and they scored 2 goals on set pieces when PSG was sloppy for an hour. And what's interesting is that PSG won the Champions League last season and the league, and with a very strong 11 that was always the same 11 starting games. And yet they won the Super Cup on Wednesday night with their bench, with the Serbs, Fabian making a difference when he came on after the hour, and then Kangin Lee and Gonzalo Ramos, the 2 goal scorers, who also scored in the penalty shootout to take the game to PSG. So I thought from what looked like a really bad first hour, after that, things got much better. And it's a team that doesn't give up, really. And it's a wonderful team, considering it's a new goalkeeper, no Fabian or Neves in midfield, going 2 goals down with 5 minutes to go, being sloppy and having only trained for 6 days, they still find a way of winning.
All right, you mentioned the goalkeeper there, elephant in the room. Less than 2 minutes in, we got to get to the Gigi Donnarumma situation. Obviously, we've said it was obvious with the signing of Chevalier, Donnarumma, who had a year left on his contract, and it was a very big contract. It was obvious that he was going to leave the club. He reinforced it with sort of his farewell message to the club and fans. I was still under the impression that he said, like, hey, look, I'll stick around and, I'll see off Chevalier like I'm going to see off Keylor Navas. Certainly the reaction of Vincenzo Raiola, who looks after him, suggests that that's not going to happen. You must admit, though, when Chevalier made that absolute horrible mistake on the second goal, was there part of you that was maybe second guessing Luis Enrique a tiny bit?
Yeah, of course, always. I mean, I think if you were Lucas Chevalier, you would have rather make your debut against Nantes at the weekend in Ligue 1 than in a game like this, of this caliber, with a trophy at stake, and making that kind of mistake. Of course. To be fair, he redeemed himself with a penalty save on Van de Ven. He was good apart from that mistake. Well, he was good. He made the save that you would expect him to make during the game. But that was a roller coaster of a debut. There's no doubt for that. I think he will learn a lot from it. But yeah, it's a massive gamble. When you have the best goalkeeper in the world in your team and you decide to move him on to get a younger goalkeeper, very good too, but right now, on potential, not on the level of Donnarumma, even if he has a different profile, even if he's better on the ball, even if he's better in the air, it's still a big gamble to get rid of the best goalkeeper in the world, the one who in a month's time will be crowned and win the Yashin Trophy and be crowned the best goalkeeper in the world. So it was always a big risk and a big gamble. And from what we saw yesterday, it would take a bit of time, I think, for Chevalier to really try to fill those boots and get into that role.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this and Donnarumma's future in more detail later. I do think, obviously, Raiola had very harsh words. Undoubtedly, Paris Saint-Germain want to get a transfer fee for him. He's saying that maybe they shouldn't. They should just let him go for nothing since they don't want him. I do wonder, from like an emotional intelligence kind of classy goodbye standpoint, since Chevalier did nothing to qualify Paris Saint-Germain for this game, could this have been handled differently, where they agree to say, hey, Donnarumma, you play this game, you got us here, and then we have, this will be your farewell, and then we sort it out from there, and Chevalier, you make your debut in Ligue 1. Might that have been an option?
Yeah, I think you're right, Gabby. Yeah, I think it's not a bad idea. I think the thing was that Lille wanted that deal for Chevalier to go to PSG and them getting the money as early as possible, and they put PSG under pressure in a way by saying, let's do that deal. And once Chevalier was there, it would have been weird for Donnarumma to train with Chevalier for a few days before this Super Cup final. I don't know. But yeah, you're right. Yeah. It probably would have been better to give him that farewell.
I mean, I think as long as you're open and honest about it, it's only 6 days of training, as Luis Enrique, of course, reminded us afterwards. I think it might have been a classier way to say goodbye. But we're going to break this down further on the Gab and Juls podcast, as well as talking some Spurs. All right, let's stick with the Donnarumma situation, Jules. Again, from my standpoint, I think from yours too, this is mainly a money thing. And it's a money thing because Donnarumma, for better or for worse, and it's like one of the oldest things in the book. He signed an enormous contract at Milan when he became a starter at 16. He signed an enormous contract when he was 19 years old. And that put him on a trajectory where people just don't take pay cuts. He had to get an even bigger contract with Paris Saint-Germain when he moved. And again, as Paris Saint-Germain, they move in with younger players. They revisit a lot of these contracts. They make more of them kind of appearance and performance based. And he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to, or he and his agent, they thought that he should receive a further bump in salary, which, would have put him on a par with some of the highest earning players, not just goalkeepers, in the world. To me, that was the main driver. Now, I know, obviously, we can justify this in other ways, and obviously Chevalier better with his feet than Donnarumma. Donnarumma made some big mistakes last season in some high-profile games, also made some tremendous saves. There's an argument to be made that Paris Saint-Germain wouldn't have been European champions without him. Am I right in thinking that if there hadn't been this divide over money, all this business, Luis Enrique could have lived with the fact that, Donnarumma isn't Alisson with his feet?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's that. Yeah, there's a bit of the profile too, because even before the start of last season, they were already thinking about Chevalier. They were already thinking about getting a goalkeeper better on the ball that could help that kind of build phase, and also probably better in the air on crosses and to come out for the ball, which again is not really Donnarumma's forte. But I think at the end of the day, they just could not agree on extension at a time where both parties wanted the extension. So you're right. It could have been a very different scenario where Donnarumma right now would still be a PSG player, the number one goalkeeper. And with a 4-year contract or 3-year contract, he could have extended by 2 years easily. So I think it is a bit of a shame that he finishes like that, and he would probably come to the Premier League and might do well, might not. I just think that it got to a point where PSG had to take that decision, because they could not have left him stay and run down his contract. They need to do something. They wanted to move for Chevalier. Chevalier wanted to come. He's 3 years younger. And yeah, he's not Donnarumma, obviously, especially not on his line. But he's got other qualities that I think Luis Enrique wanted. And the last thing I would say as well is all those players in the starting 11 and the first subs were Luis Enrique people. Whether they were already there at the club, but he chose them to be in that team. Donnarumma was the only position, the goalkeeper was the only position where it was not Luis Enrique's choice. He was there before. He was kind of imposed on Luis Enrique. And yeah, it was great. PSG don't win the Champions League without Donnarumma. It's clear. But I also think there was a bit of a power flex there from Luis Enrique to say, hang on, I want my guy, and my guy is Chevalier, and I'm going to bring him in, and I'm going to mold him into what I want. And this is going to be definitely my 100% team.
Jules, you said he's probably going to go to the Premier League. Obviously, Manchester United and Manchester City have both been linked, although I am skeptical about the City link, but what do I know? But what I feel pretty confident about is if he's leaving Paris Saint-Germain because he wanted that significant bump to 15 million euros net a season, which, if you like your wages weekly and gross, is pretty close to £500,000 a week. I don't think he's going to get that in the Premier League because there's nobody who makes that in the Premier League. I think Erling Haaland is the only one. So what does this mean? And how do you see this panning out?
I think he will have to probably want less money. And you're right, nobody's going to give him that. And he's already on 10 million a year in Paris, and he would not want to go for the same amount or less. So he might not be 15. He might ask for 12. Even 12 is a lot on top of the transfer fee, because PSG will want some money and there will be some money involved. Maybe not much, but still in the transfer fee. But more importantly, I think United right now is just cooling everything down. They did make contact with Raiola a few weeks ago. City are the only team right now in for him. But this link and the fact that City won Donnarumma, not that he's, as we said, he's the best goalkeeper in the world. I get that. but he's just not a Guardiola type of goalkeeper, right? You agree with me on this?
Yeah, I agree. Now, I like to think that Guardiola can come up with a game plan that suits his players, but if he wants to play with the back, play from the back, if he wants a guy who can do what Ederson does, yeah. Now, Donnarumma is not a fit, and also let's not forget they just spent what 30 odd million on James Trafford, who had a monster season, who maybe physically is maybe more reminiscent of Donnarumma in some ways. He just had a monster season at Burnley. He came through the ranks at Manchester City, which suggests to me, I don't watch the Championship, suggests to me he's not terrible with his feet. But clearly at that size, Trafford is maybe not a Guardiola, an Ederson type keeper with his feet either. But if I'm Trafford, I'm going to say, well, what the hell? Why am I here if now you're bringing this guy in who's just, let's not forget, Donnarumma is 26 years old. So he's got a good 10 years at the top left. I wonder if you're Trafford there, how do you feel about that, having this guy come in ahead of you, right?
Yeah, you're right. And the other thing as well, and we touched upon it a little bit earlier, Donnarumma is not a keeper that comes out on crosses, on corners, wide set pieces, everything you want. This is not what he does, despite being so big and tall and massive wingspan. This is one of his weaknesses. And we've seen many goals conceded by PSG on set pieces because he doesn't come up for the ball. And if you want to do well in the Premier League, of all leagues, you have to do well like that. Remember David De Gea coming to Manchester United and being afraid of coming out on set pieces and crosses and corners, and they paid for it. So this old Man City Donnarumma kind of link up is a bit baffling to me. But maybe it will happen, and maybe it's more of a short-term solution for Pep, who knows he doesn't have much time left at City and maybe wants somebody that on his line can win him games more than really participate in the build-up phases or in the game with the ball. But I'm still quite surprised that they are so keen on him.
In terms of the United angle, I think maybe in terms of style of play, he'd be a better fit. Obviously, Onana, again, much better on the ball. Onana's been absolutely pilloried. I think Onana's not been good. I don't think he's been as terrible as some people suggest.
Yeah.
But with Onana, you have the situation where you have to place him somewhere and try to get some of that money back. Otherwise, and you've already spent, more than 200 million on Mbumo and Mateus Cunha and Sesko. You might spend more money on the midfielder. And you're upgrading a position, sure, that Donnarumma's an upgrade over Onana, but maybe you weren't necessarily planning to upgrade this summer. I think that's what makes it a little bit tough.
Yeah, I agree. And also, Onana is injured, and he will be injured until September. So how do you offload and sell a player that he's not playing, he's injured, that we're not really sure exactly when he'll be back? And that's the problem, because if they don't offload Onana first or find him something, then they can't sign Donnarumma, because if Onana doesn't go on September 1st or by September 1st, you can't find yourself with Onana and Donnarumma both at your club. So this is the problem, I think, for United right now, and probably why they are distancing themselves from the Donnarumma links.
All right, I know you're dying to point out that Ousmane Dembele turned the game and polished his Ballon d'Or credentials.
My Ballon d'Or. Yeah, very much so.
Let's just hope Ballon d'Or voters weren't watching the Club World Cup final when
no,
Chelsea
but they were watching the
semi-final.
They were watching the semi-final.
All right, a word on Spurs and Thomas Frank. Now, people who watch Brentford more closely than I do point out that part of Brentford's success under Thomas Frank last season was to kind of go in lockdown mode while still playing with intensity and a lot of the things that, make Brentford. They go into lockdown mode and transition and try to hit on the counter and get set pieces against the big clubs, especially away from home, and against the smaller clubs, against the mid-sized clubs. They're much more on the ball. I mean, still direct, but they're much more attacking, basically, against weaker teams. Curious to see whether that would continue with better players at Spurs. I think we got our answer. We were talking off air before, and you said, "Wow, he puts out a lineup with just two attacking players in Kudus and what's it up front?
Richarlison. Yeah.
Richarlison, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they can play like that all season. I don't think they will. You're right. I think we will see a repeat of what he was doing at Brentford in terms of how pragmatic he can be, a back three, a back four, depending on the opposition, home or away. It will evolve quite a lot. And yesterday, it almost worked. To be fair, the game plan, they scored on set pieces. They were very solid defensively with 9 defensive-minded players, as we said. They made 54 passes in the second half, Gabby, in 52 minutes. That's one per minute. At this level, in a game like this, with the players that he has, it's not enough. So I'm really hoping there will be variation to the game, and I really think there will be. At least the structure is there, the plan is there, and it was a good debut for him, even if they ended up losing in the end on penalty shootout. But I felt it was good. It's just you can't play like that, every game of the season. So I'm really hoping that we will see, like you said, I think you were spot on. There will be different styles of this Spurs team depending on who they play against.
He also named Cuti Romero club captain. Obviously, Hojlund, Son gone. Are you a little bit surprised, given A, his red cards, and B, maybe some of the other stuff we know about him?
Yeah, maybe. Although you could say the other way, and that's the responsibilities that maybe he needs to get that off his game. Maybe. And also, if you look at it, there were not that many contenders. I mean, our boy Ben Davies, for me, he's the captain of the squad. He's not going to play enough,
No.
maybe to be the club captain, and because he's not going to be on the pitch enough. Okay, I get that. So if you take Ben out of the equation, then really what? Vicario maybe, but he's been there 2 seasons. So then, really, the rest is young, and the rest is just arrived, or the rest is probably not ready to be a club captain of a side of this side. So, yeah, I think it was the one, not by default. This is harsh because he's a World Cup winner too, and he's got leadership qualities. But maybe it's going to be good for him because he will have to calm down a little bit. Although we saw yesterday that there was not much calming down in him in that first half, especially against PSG.
Yeah, that is a good point. I was asking myself, okay, I mean, I think Bentancur is a phenomenal leader, but I'm not sure Bentancur is going to start every game, unlike Romero. And then I thought, well, the obvious one would be Bissouma, and then you remind yourself about Bissouma's disciplinary issues and why he wasn't even involved in this game, and then it becomes, again, like you said, maybe not the fault, like maybe somebody can make a Van de Ven case or whatever, but yeah, let's see how it works out with Romero. Sometimes people step up into the role. Alexander Isak has reportedly moved out of his home in Newcastle, actually a lovely suburb of Newcastle, actually, next to the airport, apparently. Can he really force a move here, or is this just kind of for show, theatrics?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of that for sure. I mean, he can't force anything. He's got 3 years left on his contract, Gabby. So he's not in the strongest of positions to say, hey, I don't want to play for you anymore. I don't want to live in the city. I don't even have a house if I come back to Newcastle. So let me go to Liverpool, who haven't made a second offer yet, by the way. So it's not even if there was an offer on the table for Newcastle to accept and to let him go. So I don't know where this is going. I can understand his frustration, sure, okay, but the ball is not in your side of the court, really. It's in Newcastle, and right now they seem inflexible, and I can see them easily saying to him, sorry, but you're staying here whether you want it or not, and if you don't want to play, you don't play. But in a World Cup year, he can't afford not to play at all. So I don't know how this will end, but for now, I think that this will end for him to be back at Newcastle.
I suggest somebody take a look at the updated regulations on the transfer status of players on the FIFA website. There might be something there that might be of interest to both parties here. And I'll just leave it at that for now.
Meanwhile, as Liverpool continue to work on Guéhi arriving, they're about to pick up Parma defender Giovanni Leoni. Gab, you wanted them to sign defenders. Are you happy now?
I think I'll be happy. Well, if I were a Liverpool fan, I'd be happy that Marc is in. Well, once he's in, that deal not yet finalized as we record this on Thursday morning. It's a numbers game. They need another guy who isn't Joe Gomez, who with his injury issues, to back up those two, because Konate and Van Dijk. And I think Marc Guéhi is very reliable. I think it's a good price if those numbers out there turn out to be right. With regards to Leoni, it's interesting. The guy, I think, has started 14 games in Serie A for a Parma side that struggled. I think defending in an Arne Slot team is going to be very different than what he would experience defending in Christian Kivu's Parma. So I think you have to treat it as a slow burn, as a guy who's not going to, he's not going to pull a Heisen and, step in and play every game in the Premier League. I think it's going to be somebody that you develop a year or two down the line. He's got the physicality. He's a bit reminiscent of Bastoni. Probably not as good on the ball, but probably more two-footed. Maybe not quite as athletic as Bastoni either. But certainly a bright, bright future. And he's made this decision. And shout out to Inter and Milan, by the way. Both of them pursued him all summer long. The club was saying, careful, there's interest from Liverpool too. They're like, ha, 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 what interest from Liverpool? No, we'll just wait and try to negotiate the price down. And in the end, they were proven wrong. On Monday, we suggested Kingsley Coman's move to El Nasser might pave the way for Nick Woltemade to join Bayern. Well, Stuttgart have shut it down, with CEO Alexander Werle saying, we're not negotiating. Nick will play with us next year. Case closed for Voldemort? Will this be an Isak rerun, Jules?
I think this is another saga for the Germans, Gab. We will have Isak here in England. They will have Woltemade and Bayern over there. Woltemade's agent came out and said, this is ridiculous. We had kind of agreed that if there was a good offer on the table, they would let him go. The offer from Bayern was 60 million euros, which is a lot of money for somebody who was not even registered to play in the Champions League, because it was not really part of, or the expectations were not that high for him back at the start of last season. So I think they want 75 or 80 million euros, which would be a lot of money. And I'm not sure if Bayern are ready to pay that. But it looks like we're going to have a bit of a power battle between the two clubs and the Woltemade kind of camp against Stuttgart in that case. And Bayern might well win this one.
Yeah, I don't know. If I were Bayern, I would stick to this. Woltemade's skill set is so unusual. I think he's actually not that easy to integrate into a team. He can be a real value add. But I genuinely don't think, from Stuttgart's perspective, that if you think, well, if he stays here another year, he's going to suddenly be worth 100 million. I think that's highly, highly unlikely. From his perspective, though, I'm not sure Bayern is now at this stage of his career is necessarily the right place for him either. But I agree with you. I think in the end, this deal does go through. But I will say this, a memo to his agent, gentleman's agreement, blah, blah, blah. It's all nonsense. Get it written down with real lawyers and a real contract.
The Premier League will feature ref cams, like we saw in the Club World Cup, Gabby, this season. Start on Friday with the Liverpool-Bournemouth game. Are you excited? Are you happy with that?
I am very excited. I love the ref cams. I think you are too, right, Jules? The referees love them too.
I think it's very good. Exactly.
We can see it from their perspective, and they're not intrusive. Yes, roll on the ref cam. Jules, we're not done because we have more quick hits.
Yes, let's go.
Brighton's Carlos Baleba continues to be linked to Manchester United. Jules, we're both really big fans. What's a reasonable price? I'm assuming it's less than Moises Caicedo money.
Well, you say that, Gab. We wrote on the website last week, I think it was, that Brighton are demanding or asking for around 120 million euros for him, which is around 105 million pounds, which is the kind of Caicedo money, to be fair. And Lille would get 20% or 18%, I think it is. They share in that. The rest will go to Brighton. It's a lot of money. I think it's an amount that Manchester United right now cannot pay after spending, as we've said earlier, over 200 million for the three attacking players. So I don't know. I think Baleba is a wonderful player, wonderful talent, still very young, still very raw. We saw that last season under Hutzler at Brighton. Is he the answer to the problems in midfield for Manchester United? Maybe, maybe not, but it's still definitely a lot of money.
You just know. Honestly, I'm just thinking of the profile of the two owners, right? One is Mr. Petrochemical dude with his friend Dave Brailsford. The other one is an ice-cold professional gambler who entered the poker million. He's a poker player. Yeah, he loves to go and gamble. Tony Bloom. I know who my money's on in this negotiation.
Me too. Every day.
They call the man the Lizard for a reason.
Exactly. There's no green light for Rasmus Hojlund just yet, Gabby, but according to Fabrizio Romano, Milan have agreed terms for a loan move. What do you make of it?
Yeah. So I think at some point, if you're Milan, you just take a step back and sit tight and say, hey, dude, Rasmus, you don't want to come? Don't come. I don't like this. I don't like a €6 million loan fee. €6 million loan fee plus a $45 million buy option, and you have to pay his wages. That means it's probably going to cost you like $10 million a year or $10 million for the season. For what? Is Rasmus Hojlund better than Santi Jimenez? Has he done anything to suggest that? This is it's a reclamation project. And frankly, if this guy doesn't want to be there, you don't need him. You have other players. There's other strikers you can get. And I really kind of wish, I don't know if he's like an Allegri obsession or Iglitaro or whatever, but I would give this guy a deadline and move on. And you know what? And if he comes crawling back on the last day of the transfer window because he realizes his butt cheeks are stuck on the bench behind Sesko and whatnot, then at that point, you negotiate him down. Let's talk keepers again. Barcelona have managed to register Joan Garcia after Marc-Andre ter Stegen agreed that his was a long-term injury. Of course, they're still waiting now on Marcus Rashford and whether they can register him. This happens every year.
Every year, same thing. Every 6 months, even, you could say, because we see that in January as well. I guess the priority, and Rooney Bargi, who's another new signing, the young winger, not registered either yet, despite not making much money at all. But I guess the priority was always going to be the keeper first. I get that because there's no ter Stegen, okay, there's Chesney, but so it had to be Garcia first and then probably Rashford, and Garcia makes probably less money than Rashford. But if you're Marcus Rashford and La Liga starts in 3 days, you're not sleeping well at night because you will miss that game at the weekend and you might miss the one after. And Barcelona, we need to find a way of registering them, and I'm not sure where that would come from, but it's the same issue every year. And every time they're saying, don't worry, it's all good. And they must tell that to the players when they sign them. Yeah, don't worry about registration. We will be okay. And yet it comes mid-August, end of August, and they're still not registered.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Inigo Martinez is gone, which means Paco Cubarsi has to pay with Huey, Dewey, or Louis, i.e. Eric Garcia, Christensen, or who's the third guy I keep forgetting because I banned it? Araujo. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't get it. There's a suggestion that some club executives are putting their own personal money as bank guarantees to help smooth things along, but it's not going to move the needle. I think they have to shift somebody for a transfer fee at this stage.
More keepers, Gabby. While Manchester City are figuring out the Ederson situation, Stefan Ortega is up for sale. Not really a surprise, is it?
No, it's not a surprise. I don't think he's particularly good. They paid a lot of money for him. He's got a year left on his contract, as does Ederson, and they bought James Trafford. On this Ederson point, people make it seem like all of a sudden he became the worst keeper in the world last year. I don't think he was. I think he has his ups and downs.
Yeah,
I would call his bluff. I would just say, hey, let's go with Trafford and Ederson, alternate, whatever. And if Trafford gets the job done, learns on the job, go with Trafford and find a backup keeper, and Ederson can go somewhere else. If Ederson wows you, there's still time to sign a new deal. It's not just Marc Guéhi. David Ornstein reports that Eberechi Eze is drawing interest from both Tottenham and Arsenal.
Yeah, Gabby, that's right. And I think the interesting thing in there is that Spurs will probably be ready right now to put on the table the 55 or 60 million pound that Crystal Palace would like for Eze. Whereas for Arsenal, I think they will have to sell first to get that money available to sign him. I think, or I've heard that his preference was to go to Arsenal more than Spurs, but he might be in a situation where the offer is there from Spurs because the money is available, which is not the case for Arsenal, and he will have to wait for that to happen at Arsenal. So I think it won't be sorted out in the next few days. It might take a bit of time, but I think it would be a wonderful signing for either team, really. They could do with somebody like him.
I love the player. I don't love the fee. I don't love his age. I fear Wilfried Zaha part 2 here. And what I might add, too, especially for Arsenal, why you want to bring in another guy that's going to block Ethan Nwaneri's pathway? For me, it doesn't make any sense. And I almost wonder if maybe some Arsenal aren't being pulled into this by Palace to kind of maybe get a better fee from Spurs or something, because you knew Eze was available all summer. And you have other players, maybe better players who play in that position. Yeah, again, phenomenal player, but I don't know that he's right for Arsenal. Again, like you said, unless somebody moves.
Back to the Super Cup, Gabby. There's talk of expanding it to 4 teams and moving it to Asia or North America. Is this a good idea or just another money grab?
Ooh, could it be both? If you want to make it bigger, I suppose it's a good idea. I mean, they played the game in Udine last night, which is not it's a nice stadium, but it's not a big stadium. It's far away in the northeast of Italy. And if they play it there rather than in some 60,000 seater, there's got to be a reason, right? And you assume that's because the time of year in August in Europe, everybody's away just before the start of the season. And obviously, if you expanded it to 4 teams, maybe chuck the Conference League winners in there, maybe chuck the Champions League runners-up, whatever it is, and you go and you sell it, sponsors elsewhere. But yeah, it would feel like a big money grab. But, hey, that's kind of the world of football that we live in. And by the way, talk about congesting calendar, because then we're talking about travel and all this other stuff. There'd be more moaning, I think, from the players, and rightly so. Jadon Sancho's Instagram received more than 5 million messages from Besiktas fans urging him to choose their club. I guess they really, really want him. Either that or they have some really good bots.
Maybe a bit of both. I mean, I haven't read all 5 million messages, Gabi. I won't lie to you. But the few I read seems to be legit, from legit Besiktas fans. And we know how passionate Turkish fans are with their clubs. And this is not the first time that they do something like this. Once the rumors started that Besiktas were looking at Jadon Sancho as an option, they got really excited. And I can understand that. I don't know if it's enough to convince him to go to Turkey. I think he wants to stay in the big 5 leagues. But for now, there's not many suitors. So he would have to make a decision very soon. And United will hope that he makes that decision soon and that he finds another club, because he's clearly not welcome back there. So it'll be very interesting to see what he does.
And either way, he's going to have to take less money.
Yeah, true. Barcelona and Villarreal have the green lights from the Spanish FA to move their game scheduled just before Christmas to Miami. It will be the first La Liga game to be played overseas. Gab, the legal impediments are out of the way.
Yeah, they still need to get approval. They're going to have to get approval from UEFA. I think they have to get approval from La Liga, which is only they have. They get approval from CONCACAF. But yeah, this looks like it will happen. It's time! It's time! It's Texter time! Juls' fallen giant Sheffield Wednesday are in serious financial difficulty. Owner Dejan Chansiri is a hated man. Nobody likes the guy. But never fear, a new hero is ready to ride to the rescue on his trusty white steed. And of course, you know who it is.
Of course. JT, our friend John Texter, never giving up. He wanted to buy Everton, could not. He wanted to stay at Palace, he couldn't. And now he's going to enter via the back door. I guarantee you that at Sheffield Wednesday. They finished 12th last season in the Championship. They haven't been in the Premier League for ages. I can't say, Sheffield Wednesday fans, I'm sorry if this is good news or not for you. But what I can say is that so far, what Gab and I have seen is more damage everywhere he's been. And I know there's been a bit of success at Botafogo, but more damaged than not in all the clubs that he's on. So if he comes, good luck to you guys.
Yeah, apparently he's in the midst of raising money for this. So I think he's going to need to find some dolt to go and give him a few bob to be able to make this happen.
Gab, we don't normally cover the Libyan league here, but we're going to make an exception today. Why?
Well, we don't cover it. I'm sure you watch these highlights on YouTube, or maybe Libyan YouTube. Well, because the Libyan league have new champions. It's Al Ahly from Libya. The remarkable thing here is they won the Libyan league without playing the final tournament in Libya. This happened in Milan, which, as you know, is my hometown. It's weird. It wasn't even in Milan. It was outside Milan in sort of a bedroom community called Meda, in a stadium which I think must hold like 1,500 people. Essentially, for security reasons, and this happened last year too, they have, because as you know, Libya, essentially they have 2 governments, one recognized by some people, one recognized by other people. And so they've held their 16th tournament. They decided to hold it in Italy, where there is a bit of a Libyan community. But here's the funny thing is they played all the games behind closed doors. They didn't sell any tickets for it. They didn't want any local fans who maybe were curious or local media to actually show up. The final was supposed to be on Sunday, but then because they couldn't get the VAR to work, supposedly because they hadn't actually paid for the VAR to work. They decided to move the game to Tuesday. This apparently led to a fist fight between officials of rival clubs. I just cite all this not to go and mock the Libyan League, but just to remind people that, football is not a birthright. In some ways, it's fantastic that these players get to play and their fans, at least in Libya, get to watch them on television. In other ways, it's a reminder that there's a lot of screwed up things happening in the world, and it's absurd to me that these people have to go to another country to go and safely play their football. Jacob Ramsey is on his way to Newcastle from Aston Villa in a deal worth $38 million. Jules, maybe there will be some Monchi magic later on, but for now it looks like asset stripping to me as good players leave Villa and are replaced by less good players.
Yeah, maybe. Although I think Evan Gesson that they signed from Nice is a really talented player too. It's different, isn't it? Ramsey is a product from the academy. This is straight profit into your bank account. You probably don't want to let him go, but you have quite a few options already in those kind of positions, plus maybe more to come. There's also the future of Ollie Watkins that is a bit up in the air, despite his very good form in preseason. So it's probably a difficult one, but that money on the table from a product of your academy is hard to turn down, really. So they need also to bring some money in. We've said that last summer. We've said that again after January. And they're doing that now, and I'm sure they will reinvest some of it. And I'm sure some fans will be sad to see him go because he was a kid of the club. But some of those decisions sometimes are just inevitable, I think.
Yeah, I think financial stability and PSR chickens are coming home to roost here.
Yeah, definitely. Renato Veiga is getting linked to Borussia Dortmund, Gabi, but the sticking point seems to be that Chelsea want a permanent transfer, not a loan. Are they going to get their wish?
I mean, if you're Borussia Dortmund, you have all the leverage here, assuming you really want the guy. And like Renato Veiga, I know he's become like a figure of fun to some people, well, me, because of that comment where he wanted to play center back, and Enzo Maresca said, "Well, I'd like to have long hair, but it's just not possible." Then of course he goes to Juve, plays center back. He did okay.
He did okay, yeah.
But it was. He is what he is. He's a work in progress. You look at him and you say he's comfortable on the ball. He's got decent size. He's a good athlete. I can turn him into something, whether it's a midfielder or a left back or center back. The question is, do Borussia Dortmund need another project? And I think Chelsea understand this. If Dortmund really do want him, take him on loan. There's no reason to go and, if you're Chelsea, you get some of the amortization off the books, or, you just cover it with your loan fees. Loan fee wasn't, the price they paid for him wasn't high, and maybe he'll become good. I don't know. I just know that there's no room for him at Chelsea. After Jonathan David and Lucas Chevalier, Bafode Diakite is on his way out of Lille for $35 million. He's joining Bournemouth, where he'll have some pretty big shoes to fill.
Yeah, that's right. Replacing Hojlund and Zabani is a great player. He was one of Ligue 1's best centre-backs, not just last season, but the season before too. He had a great run in the Champions League, like Lille last season, where he had really good performances against top teams like Real Madrid or Juventus or Atletico Madrid. So it's a good signing, I think, really good signing for Bournemouth. The money is okay. I think it's a big sell for a French club, but it's not too much spent either for an English club. And I really believe he's going to do well. They liked Nathan Zeze, who playing for Nantes, who chose Saudi Arabia instead of Bournemouth, which I've struggled a little bit to understand. But for Diakite, he really liked this project. I think, and no offense to Bournemouth here, but he sees it as a stepping stone, a bit like what Hojlund and Zabani did for then a bigger club even. But he's made for the Premier League. He's got the physicality, he's aggressive, he's decent on the ball, he's got pace. He would be a really good addition to their squad for sure.
I have to say that's got to be the ultimate selling point, right? The guys who had this job before you, one of them is now at Real Madrid and the other one is at Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah. News broke on Monday, Gabi, and we mentioned it a little bit, that Palace appeal against exclusion from the Europa League had been rejected by CAS. The club issued a pretty strong statement after that.
Yeah, they said, and I quote, multi-club structures hide behind the charade of a blind trust, while clubs such as ours, who have no connection to another club whatsoever, are prevented from playing in the same competition. I read the statement because they're absolutely right. Now, they're not, if you want, entirely innocent, because you knew that when you sold a chunk of your club to John Textor, he was in that situation. And you know that David Blitzer, another one of your owners, also is a multi-club ownership guy. But the reality is that this blind trust thing where people like our buddy, Mr. Marinakis, gets his friend, Joe Lawyer, to go and say, oh, look, club is yours now for a year. I don't know anything about it. No, don't tell me anything about it. This is all nonsense. And by the way, it was like nonsense with Nice and Manchester United as well. We need new rules. We need new rules now. And I think the only fair rule to me is you're a multi-club ownership. I go further. I'd say anybody who's got more than 5% of a club, if that club qualifies for the same competition as another club, you have to choose. We put you on the spot. You decide who plays in that competition, and the other one doesn't. I mean, honestly, grow some, and whether it's Red Bull with the Salzburg, Leipzig nonsense, whether it's a City Football Group, whatever you want, but enough. We need proper rules. And I know Chefrin came out and he says, well, football's changed, multi-club ownerships, they bring money into football. Yeah, they bring money into football, which then goes right back out in player wages and whatever. Football doesn't need this. You don't always necessarily need to have more, quote-unquote, investment in football, which then dries up as people go under. So, yeah, I feel for Palace, and they're right. And hopefully this will be the spur for UEFA to get some real rules on this.
And they will win the Conference League now. So they would not have won the Europa League, but they can win the Conference League.
And qualify for the Europa League the year after that.
Exactly.
But they won't play in that because they'll be in the Champions League. That would be pretty cool, right? With your boy Maxence Lacroix at the back?
Yes, every day.
Montse Tome has been relieved of duty as manager of the Spain women's national team. Her place will be taken by Sonia Bermudez. Jules, is this all down because they're the best team at the Euros and then they couldn't beat England in the final and screwed it up on penalty kicks?
Yeah, there's a bit of that, Gabby. There's the fact that they didn't win gold at the Olympics in last summer as well before. So two big tournaments where you would expect them to win and they don't. That's the first thing. What bothers me the most in here, and I mean, I like Montse Tome. I had nothing against her. But Sonia Bermudez really is what happened in the past, and you know the trouble that the Spain national team, the Spain women's national team, had with the former president. That I don't even want to mention the name, and she was very much in support of that and in that camp. And now you bring her into this role. It's almost like you bring a bit back of the past in there. And I'm just not, this is not on for me, really. And there was all the contenders that they could have gone for. And for them to go to that, if I was a player of that team who'd been there when Putellas suffered what she suffered after that World Cup triumph, I would not be happy right now by the fact that she's been picked to be the national team head coach. The Premier League revealed that their operating expenses rose by £81 million in 23-24, and it's because of an increase in legal fees due to club regulatory matters. In bracket, Gab, I quote, I wonder what they're talking about.
Yeah, you gee, maybe that gigantic case with the 115 charges, which are 130 against Manchester City, which has been going on forever. You know my views on lawyers. I think they're generally, not all of them, not every single one, but they're generally pretty much blood-sucking leeches most of the time. And, I mean, to give you some context on the 81 million, their operating costs the year before were 135 million, and now they've gone up to 216 million. This is what, 60%, 70% increase? Simply because of all the lawyers you have to hire to fight this stupid case? I mean, it's a stupid case. No, it's a worthwhile case and whatever, and it's taken so long. I hope when this is all over, the Premier League, come up with better watertight rules, pay the lawyers once to do that, and then tell them to go away so that these things can be regulated and adjudicated without all this nonsense. And B, if the Premier League win the case, I hope that all this money gets compensated from the other side. Ligue 1's experiment, closely watched by other leagues with producing and selling games directly to fans, kicks off this weekend. But there's trouble again on the TV front, Jules, as BN are withholding payments for being they have one game a week and they're not happy with their pick of the games.
Yeah, they haven't paid in full. They've paid some of it. I think there's 20 million that they still need to pay that hasn't been paid yet. But that's something that the league really didn't need as they're launching their own channel, as you mentioned, to show all the games called Ligue 1 Plus. They seem happy with the numbers so far of subscriptions. They've very much put the word out there that if you support your club, then you support the league and you go and subscribe instead of watching it on some stream somewhere, which I think is fair. It doesn't cost much. It's 10 euros a month. You've got different packages, but the lowest one is 10 euros a month, which I think is really decent. You will have good people working on it, good programs on it, all the Ligue 1 games, apart from the one on Saturday that is on beIN Sports. So I really hope it works, and it won't work like what Sky or TNT are giving in the UK to the Premier League, for example. Of course, it's not. But it was that, or they had nothing else. So let's just hope it's a successful one.
I mean, isn't part of the issue here, though, that they wanted the first or second, they would have the first pick or second pick in alternating weeks. And so they figured, oh, look, we'll have Paris Saint-Germain or Marseille every week. But then they put a cap on it. And what I don't understand here is I'm pretty sure that the guy who owns or the guy who runs the biggest team in Ligue 1 is also the guy who runs beIN Sport.
Yeah.
Shouldn't these things be agreed clearly beforehand? So it always feels like they agree something and then something comes on. Oh, look, we're going to do something different. And then one side gets upset. This is what I just really do not follow here. And in the past, we've blamed a lot of this chaos on John Textor. We can't blame this on him again, right?
No, and you're right. This is a problem now because the big game in France is Sunday night. This is it. This is the time slot for that. PSG or Marseille or Monaco play a lot at that time, or Lyon in the past. Not the slot that beIN Sport have right now, which is late afternoon on a Saturday. But for them, if they could show PSG every week or Marseille every week or Monaco every week, they would. So it's difficult. I understand both positions, but for the Ligue 1 channel, this doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. Because if all the PSG games are on beIN Sport, people are not going to subscribe to the Ligue 1 Plus channel. They're going to wait and stay with their beIN Sport subscription. Makes a lot of sense. So I think this will be resolved, but it's just, again, another ugly battle in this already very long battle over TV rights. Serie A clubs have reached an agreement with the Players' Union that says that players on relegated teams will automatically have their wages cut by 25%. Does that make sense to you, Gab?
Yeah, this is a deal. It goes going forward. It's they make it seem as like, oh, look, it's this innovative collective bargaining. It's not. It's a relegation clause. They've been around for 30 years. A lot of clubs in other leagues have them. A lot of clubs in Serie A already have them. Manchester United have a clause where if they don't qualify for the Champions League, the players' salaries get reduced the following season. So it's not weird. Of course, you can also ask for an exemption when you negotiate your salary. It's up to the club to grant it. So I think this is all just kind of window dressing. And I'm kind of a free market guy. There's nothing stopping your club from negotiating this and saying it's your club policy. They do it elsewhere. You don't need to have the league saying, well, this is the official policy, but then we can grant you an exemption. I don't know. I suppose it's good if they don't have to argue about this anymore, but it's really something that should be on the clubs to do. Axel Witsel has a new home. He's joining Girona on a free transfer. Jules, how much does he have left?
It's a good question. Gabi is 36, didn't play much for Atletico Madrid last season, and often as the sweeper in a back three where he didn't have much running to do or anything. I suspect he will play again as a centre-back for Girona, but he wanted a bit more of his career, and Girona, lovely club. Okay, they won't have the same season that they had 2 years ago, of course. There's be more of a struggle again. I think this season coming up, similar to last season. But he's a great player to have in your squad. He's got experience. He looks after himself, so he should be still putting decent performances in, I think. So, yeah, it's good, I think. It's good when you're a player, even at that kind of age, but you feel you still have a bit more to give. And I just hope it's not a disaster, and I don't think it will be. According to Polish media, super agent Pini Zahavi said that Robert Lewandowski turned down a 100 million euro a season offer from a Saudi Arabia club because he wanted to fight for La Liga and the Champions League this season. Gab, are you buying it?
No. I don't. Why? I'm not buying because I don't want to buy. Now, did he have offers? And did he say, no, I'd rather stay at Barcelona and the big stage while I can? Yes. I just don't believe it's 100 million. 100 million euros a season is just an absurd amount of money. The only way you can even begin to possibly potentially justify it is with if he brings weirdo commercial deals because he's a global superstar and with a massive following. In other words, if his name is Messi or Cristiano, and he's not. His name is Robert Lewandowski. Phenomenal footballer, but let's face it, in terms of charisma and presence, not a patch on the other two guys. So, no, I think Pini Zahavi was mentioning, if he did say this, I think he was maybe saying it metaphorically or over multiple years. Otherwise, I'd love to meet the guy in Saudi who offered him 100 million euros a year. I'd love to go and do business with that guy.